Well, many people buy property thinking they can always sell it later and make some money. But did you know that you can actually sometimes lose money when you are selling your property? We're talking about that and how to avoid this today with Philip Skuman up next. Now, a lot of times people buy property thinking, I'll sell this later, I will make some money. But it's kind of shocking to find out that there are circumstances under which I could actually lose money when buying the property, isn't it?
Yes, but I think it's important to also consider if you're not making money fast enough, then you're also losing money. Um,
How so?
because of inflation.
Okay.
If your investment is not keeping track with inflation or growing faster than inflation, then you're actually getting poorer. So you are losing money. It's not just about the nominal amount that you purchased for. Like
Yeah.
if you bought for 1 million and sold for 1.1.
Yeah.
If you bought for 1 million and sold for 1.1 after 20 years, your
You've lost
investment,
money.
you've lost money because your investment hasn't grown and kept pace with what it should have, and other financial vehicles and instruments.
And that's a bit crazy actually, because someone would think that if I bought a property for 500,000, say maybe this year, and then in 10 years time I sell it for 600,000, I've actually made a profit of 100,000, but it's not the case.
Yeah, well, yeah, you made the profit in real terms, but if you look at it, you would have made more money with something else, and your money is now 500,000 is no longer 500,000 in value, in
Yeah.
buying power,
Yeah.
because of inflation. So you gotta ensure that happens, that you grow in, because there's two portions to growing your property, or your value. It's the liquid return on investment, which is your rental income versus what you paid over the year in a percentage, and then also how much percentage-wise did your property grow. So, like, I bought it for 500 and I sold it for 600.
Yeah.
One must remember that it's only profitable to flip houses or to buy and sell at a profit in a bustling economic period and cycle. We've had an economic slowdown since COVID. Property prices have remained semi-stagnant. We've had spike areas like the Cape or in Polokwane, Fauna and Flora Park. Those areas have spiked because of other reasons. But it's not that property in general grew. I mean, if you look, for instance, Bendor stagnated.
Yeah.
It's only the townhouses in Bendor that grew in value. So, it's where they say location, 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 it is true. There are certain areas where you would buy, and then let's look at Lepalole. For a long time, the property prices just increased, and people, bought for 1 million and rented it for 12, 13,000 rand. They made money, and then the mine also competed in developing,
Yeah.
and there was an economic slowdown, and then you find people need to actually get rid of these properties, and then they can't for the same amount, so they sometimes need to pay in. Another reason where people, or another place where people usually lose money is if they try to flip the property. Now you need to know what you're doing if you're trying this. I don't even have the guts to do it. Because you need to secure the property at a very low rate. Let's say the market value is 2 million for a similar house, but this one that you're buying is derelict and it needs upgrading and whatnot.
Yeah.
You'll have to buy it for like 1 million if you are to cover all of your costs of entry and exit to market. Because remember, you're flipping, so you're not just entering the market, you're exiting as well. So
Yeah.
you need to calculate you're going to pay estate agent fees when you sell. You're going to buy now, and you're going to pay capital gains tax. So whatever profit you did make, SARS is still going to take a portion of that too.
Yeah.
And now if you calculate, let's say you made 200,000 on your 1.6 million investment, what's your return? It's like 16% if you do it within a year. But if it spreads to a second year, you halve that. So now you've made 8%. So your money was better off in the bank. So technically you are losing money. There are certain instances where, let's say you bought and then you were forced to sell 2 years later.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that if you buy to cover for those costs, entry and exit, you need to own your property for at least 5 to 7 years before you start breaking even.
Oh.
A lot of people don't understand this. They bought and then they call me, they want to sell, and then they can't understand why they're not making profit.
Yeah.
because you haven't owned it long enough, and we haven't had sufficient economic boom to sort of increase the demand that much, and to ensure that you actually do make profit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how do I avoid this though? Because I'm sure there are certain things that I need to know before I buy a property, especially if I'm buying it with the purposes like you were saying, not just maybe you're flipping it, but people generally think that if I buy a property, this is literally an investment that I'm gonna be able to sell and eventually make money from.
It is an investment, but remember, these days very few things are growing much quicker so as to be able to create a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the perspective is important, because people, you might make 100K on a 2 million investment. That is making a profit, and I mean, it's an asset that doesn't lose value. Not necessarily until there might be external factors, but generally it doesn't lose value. But they expect to make more. Mm-hmm. And the expectation versus the reality is where the drawback comes in. Mm-hmm. Because they want to make, everyone thinks that you're going to buy it now and sell it later and make 10%, 20% return. It's not realistic. I mean, it's, even if you look at construction costs these days, it's, I might be able to secure this house at 2 million, but if I have to rebuild that house, I'm going to pay full. If you're looking at current construction costs and land. Yeah. And that makes it even more difficult to sell at a profit if you bought a new house. It's much easier if you bought an old house. People also don't have that perspective. So I think it comes down to knowing your market, doing your homework. But even then, I mean, I do this for a living and I don't have the guts to do it.
Yeah. All right. Philip, is there any possibility of me knowing in advance if there would be a positive investment in the property that I'm actually buying by the time I want to sell it?
Yeah, you would look for infrastructure development. If there's, like, let's use Polokwane as an example. We've got the medical hospital coming, that student training hospital. We've got the UNISA campus coming. There's 3 on the hill by the reservoir. There's 3 specialist hospitals coming. This kind of infrastructure development does signal that there will be long-term future growth. If an area or town has hung back in terms of developing infrastructure, you know that there's not a lot of growth planned by other sectors of the economy. So I think look for indicators where you can see that there's major infrastructure development either by companies, corporates, or government. And if people are investing in an area, that generally tends that they will be bringing more salaries to that area, which will increase the demand in that area. And now you've got to also look at how fast the supply and demand curves are being satisfied. If we cannot fill the demand quick enough, property prices will rise. I mean, you've probably heard that Polokwane is overpriced.
Yeah.
It's a supply.
And it is.
It's a supply and demand thing. I believe Polokwane is actually undervalued, but along with the rest of the country. And
Philip,
but
how could you say that?
If you compare us to, look at Gauteng. Gauteng has actually had an exodus of people. So now 3 out of 10 units are vacant. That means the property prices are way more enticing than they would be in Polokwane, where we don't have enough houses for the people demanding them. So, if the demand is high and the supply is low, obviously you're going to have a warp. And that doesn't look like it's going to be able to be solved pretty soon.
Yeah.
Because we still have a water shortage. It's not like people are lining up to develop properties anywhere. And definitely not at the rate we are growing. So that does indicate that Polokwane would be a long-term good investment. Mokopane, same thing with the mines coming.
Yeah.
So I think look for those indicators, and then you would be better poised to not make a mistake. But there's no guarantee.
Oh, Philip, congratulations. You successfully stressed me out for the rest of the day. Philip Skuman, the broker and owner of REMAX, talking to us about how to avoid losing money when selling your property.
Thanks, guys.